wild card is always the old YouTube here, but it looks like we are good as best I can tell. There we are. All right. Well, live before lock. It is live before lock. Live before lock tonight's special announcement. That's going to be at 6:30 to 7:30. Lock at 7:30 tonight, and then we will be doing an extra half hour for Super Draft, which, by the way, is the sponsor of the NBA Strategy Show. I am joined by usual weekend host Adam Ship My Money Scherer. Adam, talk to me a little bit about hockey for a sec while I get a few of these things set up here. You have joined me in the dark side. Now, of course, you play at much higher stakes, but I am going on almost a year now of playing about $50 a day there, and it's been a lot of fun. Fantasy Cruncher is phenomenal because we can do the stacking with the lines and the Osmo projections, and now that line boom bust tool. Que magnifique.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the hell I'm doing as far as like actual hockey players. I have absolutely no idea. But
There are no biases this way.
yeah, exactly. I just I use the tools on the site. I use Fantasy Cruncher. I have a good understanding of how to play strategy wise because it's very similar to baseball, which is one of my main sports. And yeah, and then I just hopefully win money. So it's been nice. Like it's been relaxing from a DFS standpoint because with basketball, obviously I put in all the work, talking about guys and then watching games, and you get look for one, you get like FOMO if you're not rostering someone, but then also like you're very aware of when you get unlucky, like when someone's shooting poorly or in foul trouble or whatever. Same goes for baseball, like because I follow it, so I know when my guy like lines out 3 times. But hockey, I just kind of put my lineups in and then don't really know what's going on. So I'm completely unaware when like a guy I need to score, hits the post 3 times. I just don't even know what happens. So it's really relaxing.
Yeah, it's the it's less frustrating, which is important. There are not many sites doing hockey content right now. That was one of the things that kind of went by the wayside on a couple of the other stalwart sites. We're the only ones doing shows. There will be one today with Jay Kari. We, of course, have Jake, who's an excellent player. We've got Nolan Kelly in the fold here as well. And then, we've got Slim Cliffy and Vots and Chris Wassel and a whole rabid group of people there in the Slack channel, which is helpful for both Adam and I because they'll do the at-channel alerts when there's line changes, people are scratched, goalies confirmed that we didn't expect, etc. So it's enabled me to play sports that lock at the same time. Now, when we have NBA, baseball, and hockey going on for that 8 or 9 day period there, I don't know what's going to give, Adam. I'm not sure. But I will say when I'm on air, I play the NHL tiers, which is kind of interesting because then you don't have to worry about goalie scratching, and there's not as much line stacking. So that's been fun as well. But there we are. All right, that was your NHL discussion there. Again, watch Jay Kari later this afternoon and get all the details. Plus, if you use the promo code NBA Strategy, you will get 50% off any 1 week package, and you can choose hockey only. You can choose the full package that has access to MMA, hockey, NBA, NASCAR, etc., etc. Oh, and we have XFL this weekend. Now, XFL is a separate package, but I will say our projections have been very, very helpful. We do have ownership projections, and what's been nice is Osmo himself has been popping into the Slack channel, giving us what he's doing with some of the late injury scratches that we've had there, because it's not the most robust of injury reporting just yet until the actives and inactives come out for XFL. But that's been fun. I'm bringing in a 3-game winning streak into this week, Adam. We'll have to see what happens with week 4. But let's get on to our slate. We've got a 7-gamer. Again, it is starting at 7:30. There is one early game. It is Chicago at New York. Just hitting on that one. The litany of Chicago guys are still mostly out. We're still waiting to see Wendell Carter Jr. Coming back from that ankle injury. You've got a questionable Kobe White, Chandler Hutchison out, Lauri Markkanen is out, Otto Porter Jr. still out, Chris Dunn still out. So a cast of thousands not playing. Dennis Smith Jr. got a concussion, so he is out for the New York side, and then that is going to boost Frankie Ntilikina and Alfred Payton plus Julius Randle. I don't know who's going to stop him from the Chicago side there, but that's the quick hit for that game. We of course have projections and such for that, but that's a 5 o'clock game. It's only in the standalone showdown slates. I'm turning this one over to you, Adam. Portland and Atlanta, one of our two 7:30 starts here. We've got Atlanta coming in on a back-to-back. No Damian Lillard. CJ McCollum appropriately priced, but oh, this is a matchup that dreams are made of.
Yeah, great matchup. His McCollum's price tag has obviously come up, but I still think that considering the matchup, he's a little underpriced here just because of how many minutes he plays, and he is obviously more productive when Lillard's not on the floor. Going back the last few seasons, he's averaged about 1.25 DraftKings points per minute when Lillard does not play. And now you get this matchup against Atlanta, who obviously is one of the fastest teams in the league, one of the least efficient defensive teams. And in competitive games, you're getting 38 plus minutes from McCollum. So even though there's a little bit of a sticker shock at this price point, since it's so much higher than we normally get McCollum at, I still think that it's a pretty good salary against Atlanta.
Yeah. Now, branching out from McCollum, I mean, probably the next guy I like the most in this game is going to be Hassan Whiteside. Phenomenal matchup there going against John Collins and company. But those are the gimmies here. What do we want to do with Ariza? Is trust a word we can use now with Gary Trent Jr., at least for 20 to 25 fantasy points? You've got Carmelo Anthony that's going to be around there for some rebounds, maybe mid-teens for shot attempts. What do we like as we branch down? Because this is a phenomenal game with, let's see, a 237 implied point total, which is the highest of the slate.
Yeah, I mean, with Trent and Ariza, they're not high usage guys, and you still run the risk of getting empty minutes out of them. But they're just playing such big minutes, and then you factor in this matchup that they both look like good values just because their salaries haven't really risen. Only 4,600 on DraftKings for Ariza, 4,300 for Trent. You have Trent coming off of a game against Indiana where he played 40 minutes. Trevor Ariza played a little over 37. So if you're expecting 36 to 38 minutes with the potential for even a little bit more from these guys, they're going to look like good values just because of the extra possessions they get in this game. And you mentioned Whiteside. Obviously, he's in a good spot against Atlanta. His rates don't really change without Lillard, which makes sense because he's never someone you're going to run the offense through. But he is playing huge minutes along with the rest of these starters, and there is more block upside for him here against Atlanta because you have one of the leading drives per game point guards in the league and Trey Young on the other side. So I think that for that reason, it's a little bit better matchup than normal for Whiteside.
All right, let's see here. On the other side, we do have Trey Young. You've got John Collins. Those guys did play yesterday, but Trey Young always outstanding. At least from a fantasy perspective. We want to talk defense. We want to talk real NBA. We want to talk all of that. Go talk to Josh and Laffy. In the meantime, from a fantasy perspective here, what do you want to do with Atlanta? Because they are solid at home, and this is actually a good matchup for them as well because it's not exactly like there's any good defenders at the various positions here for the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I think that both sides of this game obviously are really, really appealing. You have Trey Young's salary actually dropping a little bit on DraftKings. On the second half of a back-to-back, maybe a little bit of a concern for that reason, but it's a good matchup. He plays huge minutes in competitive games. We've talked a lot about how his assist numbers have gone up when John Collins plays, and he's averaged over 1.5 fantasy points per minute in those games. So I think that he looks like a very, very strong option. You got John Collins starting at center yesterday against Brooklyn. It remains to be seen if that'll be the case again today. But if it is, his rebounding numbers go up a bit. His salary is still pretty high, but he's also playing really big minutes recently. We had seen earlier this year he was kind of stuck in like the 32 to 33 minute range. Now you're getting a lot more of those 36, 37 minute games. So that makes him a little bit more appealing as well.
All right. Anything else in this one? Cam Reddish, maybe a Anthony Simmons.
Reddish,
Damn
I
it,
think maybe
Simons. God, I even mentally made that note and still said it in. Visually saw 1M, said do not call him Simmons. And what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can kind of look to the wings on Atlanta too, just because this game should be there should be so many points to go around in this game. Kevin Herter would be my preferred option. He should play like 34 to 36 minutes if this game's competitive. He does take a hit in his rates when Trey Young is on the floor, as everyone does pretty much, but he's cheap enough where if you're getting that kind of playing time here, he doesn't look bad. And then Cam Reddish will be an interesting one to keep an eye on projected ownership because he was about 12% owned yesterday when he got the start against Brooklyn. He had a monster game, shot, I think, 6 for 9 or 7 for 10 or something like that from three, and, put up really big numbers. Played 34 minutes in that game. I think that there's a chance that maybe a little bit too much ownership flocks to him here, but and right now we have him at 22% on DraftKings. We have him as the ninth highest owned guy on the slate. But at the same time, he is only 4,300. If he does start again and you expect low to mid 30s in minutes, it's still going to be a decent value.
All right. Anything else from this game?
Nope.
Rank your favorite play, since there are a couple here.
McCollum, Trey. For value, I think Trent, Ariza, and Herder.
All right, on to our next one. Not as fun, but we still got to talk about it. This one is Brooklyn at Miami. Back-to-back here for Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie reminded everyone that he's a pretty good player last night. But tonight, a little bit of a tougher matchup here. We have a 220 implied point total. Miami is 7-point favorites at home. Miami has been almost, but not quite, invincible at home. Tough matchup here. I want to see. Let me see. We should have Jimmy Butler in the play, correct?
Yeah, as far as I know.
All right. So with regards to, why is that not showing up on my filters? Let me look at that. What do you want to do with this one? Feels like kind of a tough one for me. And here's why. We talked about Portland and Atlanta, a bunch of plays there. We've got the Lakers, depending on LeBron James status. We'll get to that. A bunch of plays there. If LeBron's out, if LeBron's in, we can consolidate things kind of to him and Anthony Davis. You've got Memphis, who has a bunch of guys with injury. We got a ton of options in the Golden State and Phoenix game. I like all of these. Like, you can build the whole player pool just kind of those three games there. What do you like or not like here from the Brooklyn side of things?
The Brooklyn side, I think, is pretty rough. You've gotten Karis LeVert's salary coming up. Obviously, he has a monster ceiling, but it's a pretty unappealing matchup. Miami's a quality team defensively, but even more importantly than that, they're one of the slowest teams in the league. They've played at the fourth slowest pace since the start of January. So it's not really appealing for the Brooklyn guys, especially where like LeVert's priced up. You get a little bit of a salary discount on Spencer Dinwiddie, only 7,400 on DraftKings. He has taken a hit in his production recently because earlier in the year when Irving was out and we were getting these monster games from Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert was also out. Now you have LeVert back. And so Dinwiddie's usage rate in those games is about 27%, assist percentage around 36%. Still putting up good numbers, just not at the same clip that we were seeing earlier this year when Kyrie was out. But the salary is low enough where it's not he's not overpriced. It's just still tough to prioritize him in this matchup when there are going to be a lot of other, really good guard plays, including the guys that we had talked about from the previous game. Beyond that, if you want to roll the dice on guys like Taurean Prince or Jared Allen, they're cheap enough. We saw a little bit of a weird center rotation from Brooklyn yesterday because towards the end of the game, they actually went small and didn't have DeAndre Jordan or Jared Allen in the game, which is extremely unusual for them. That was also a game where they were just getting beat badly by Atlanta at that point. I think we're just trying to get extra shooters on the floor and kind of quickly get back into that game. So it's not something that I expect to be a trend going forward, but we have seen Allen typically playing 25, 26 minutes in competitive games where he's not in blowouts. Jordan gets the other 22, 23 minutes. Allen's price tag is only 4,800 on DraftKings. It's still not a matchup that I like, but it is at least worth mentioning that he's really cheap and does tend to produce at a high rate per minute.
All right, I'm just looking here. I want to make sure we mention a few FanDuel plays here and there for the people. The only people popping for Brooklyn on FanDuel right now, Spencer Dinwiddie is at 7,100. He is at 16%. And then you have Joe Harris, who is 4,400. He is at 11%. Nobody else is over 5. So not a lot to see here from the FanDuel side. As we kind of transition to the Miami side, you've got Bam Adebayo in the midst of a phenomenal season. Of course, when Jimmy Butler is back, that does lessen his usage, his assist rate, etc. I'm actually, depending on Tyler Hero, I don't think he's been ruled out for this one, but let me Okay, Hero is out. Expected to be back midweek, potentially next week. So with Hero out, I'm okay with Dragic. I'm okay with none. They're not making me do cartwheels or anything, and I like some players from some of those other games I mentioned, but those would be guys that are at least still going to be in my player pool. What do you like from the Heat that you want to highlight for people, either
I
good
th-
or bad?
I think Butler's the one that stands out the most. He's just still pretty inexpensive, only 7,800 on DraftKings. Played his normal 33 minutes last night. Normally you'll get 33 or 34 in competitive games. Brooklyn's not a great matchup. They've been middle of the pack in pace over the last couple of months. They've been a pretty decent defensive team as well. So overall, I don't think it's that appealing of a game. You also have some pricing on Miami that has come up as a result of the games that Butler missed and hasn't really gotten back to normal. For example, Kendrick Nunn being 5,700, Goran Dragic at 5,500. Normally, you get those guys a little bit cheaper, but because Butler had missed games, they came up. So, um, you can take shots on Bam because he's just a really good player, but his rates do take a hit with Butler in the lineup as well. It is a good matchup against the Brooklyn front court, and then Butler, I think, looks like a pretty decent option. Beyond those two, it gets really tough for me to like much.
All right. For those of you listening, if you can just let me know how the sound balance is working today. I'm doing the Zoom platform with Adam. Adam and I, the Wonder Twin powers of tech jinxes, have abandoned our other platform because the sound quality just kept going would get very imbalanced, regardless of what I did with the settings. But let me know if nobody's complaining. I'm going to assume it's okay, but should be an improvement here. All right, heading on to our next game here. We do have let's see, we've got two here at 8 o'clock. You've got the Lakers at Memphis. Let's start there. What is your guess for LeBron? I kind of think they let him sit on this one. We have the Lakers favored on the road by 8. Be a good time for him to get healthy. Memphis is absolutely imploding. It's like literally limbs are falling off their players, and their playoff hopes are vanishing before our eyes. What is your first read there with LeBron?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad it's an 8 o'clock game because we should get the news before lock. My guess would be that he doesn't play just because, again, it is a road game. It is a game that they should be able to win without him. But it seems like he's probably truly questionable.
Yeah. So if he plays, it's for me. It's really him and Anthony Davis, right? Would anybody else rise to being in your player pool at that point?
I think you could still take some shots on guys like Avery Bradley or KCP because Danny Green's doubtful to play. So that does open up some more minutes for those guys. Even if LeBron's in, obviously they're not going to be high usage guys, but Caldwell Pope's only 3,600, Bradley's 3,300, and with Green out, there's a good chance you'd be getting 28 to 30 minutes from those guys.
Right. Now, let's operate as if LeBron were to miss this game again. We don't know. We're just speculating here. Does Davis essentially become the best play on the slate?
Yeah, I'd go right back to him. Obviously, he was really disappointing against Golden State the other night, which was surprising, but he produces over 1.5 fantasy points per minute when LeBron's not on the floor. His usage rate goes up a lot, which obviously increases his ceiling as well. Rebounding goes up, assists go up. I'm not going to let one bad game without LeBron, deter me from rostering him again here, especially because his salary actually dropped from where it was against Golden State. Now he's only 10,200 on DraftKings. It's a perfectly fine matchup against Memphis. He's essentially matchup proof anyway. So if LeBron's out, there's just no way for me to get away from Davis.
All right, let's see. Avery Bradley revenge? Did Avery Bradley play for Memphis
Yeah, he played for him last year.
for the whole year?
No, he came over partway through the year. He had that stretch where he became a phenomenal fantasy player. Memphis was just letting him run pick and roll as the point guard, and he just started going nuts for like a month and a half.
I don't. I've blocked that out of my mind. I remember at one point he was the heir apparent to Rondo in Boston. That was kind of fun. That now they're both on another team here. I remember the Detroit phase. That was half a season.
Yeah, last year at last year's live final, Bradley was on Memphis for sure.
Okay. Yeah, he played 14 games for Memphis, averaged 13 attempts, field goal attempts per game, and 27 fantasy points per game, 28 DK points per game, 27 Yahoo in Fanduel.
It was one of the most profitable things that happened last season.
Yeah, best stretch of his career for 3-pointers made, best stretch of his career for assists as well, like dominating. Like, here's the crazy thing about him. You always think of him kind of as the point guard guy, right? Do you know what his career assists per game are?
I think of him as a 2 guard, but
Okay.
um, probably not very high.
1.8.
Yeah.
His time with Memphis, 4.
Yeah, it was there was a long stretch where he was just really low owned because he came from I think he came from the Clippers where he
He
was like
did.
a basically like zero usage guy and did absolutely nothing. And then Memphis was like, hey, play point guard, run pick and roll, like run the entire offense. And it took a while for people to catch on. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yes, those DFS darlings, particularly in the NBA. Do you remember Thomas Robinson? I believe.
Yes. Yes.
These guys come in, roll up 25 and 10, and then never to be heard from again because they end up in Europe or something.
Yeah.
So, oh, good times. All right, back to the Lakers. So if LeBron's out, obviously Rondo and Kuzma receive tremendous push there. Good call out there for Danny Green. Is there anybody else that you want to touch on from the Lakers side? Kind of a grab bag at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would look at Kuzma too. A couple games ago, he lost minutes or only played like 16 minutes. You had Markieff Morris joining the team then. Against Golden State, you got 29 minutes from Kuzma, but Green being out could have an effect on him as well because we have seen, at least at times recently, Frank Vogel go to Kuzma, Davis plus a center lineup. So you're getting some time at the 3 for Kuzma. It's not where they would play him ideally, but with Green being out, those minutes do open up. And if LeBron is out as well, then obviously there's even more minutes there. So I think there's a good chance that Kuzma, plays mid to upper 20s too.
All right, we've got Memphis. Yes, Memphis on the back-to-back. So let's see. Last night we had a nice game there for Jonas Valanciunas, who I believe pretty much doubled in the first quarter. I saw someone saying that in Slack. I didn't officially look at it because I was doing.
It sounds right. He got a lot of points in a hurry.
He had 13 points, 25 rebounds.
I didn't know, like, I was frustrated because I didn't play much of him. And when I was looking at that game, it was just like, he's going to get every rebound, but I was kind of scared. I didn't know what they would do with his minutes because the last time these two games played, Sacramento went small and Memphis matched them. But yeah, he got his full run and he got every rebound.
Yeah, when they played on the 20th in Sacramento, he only played 20 minutes, had 8 points, 11 rebounds. Last night, he played 32.3 minutes, 13 points, 25 boards, 2 blocks. He only shot 28% from the field. Imagine if he had hit a few more shots.
Well, that's the thing with Valanciunas. Like, his minutes obviously are inconsistent for a variety of reasons, but he's a great per minute guy. So he's one of those guys where, and there's a handful of them where they're just really, really volatile. And if they're going to be low owned and at a reasonable price point, you could just play them every day in tournaments and you're going to come out ahead based on them.
True or false? He made a 3-pointer last night.
Since you're asking me, I'm going to say true.
You are correct. He had a 3-pointer. All right. Fun with numbers there. Point being, where I'm going with this one, this will be, if he plays, it'll be the 7th back-to-back they've had. In the previous 6, he has averaged 26 minutes per game. He has not had a game off since December 21st. So how are you feeling about his minutes tonight in the matchup against a front court that theoretically will be, if LeBron's out, will be having probably close to 48 minutes of traditional centers out there, depending on what they do with Anthony Davis at the 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the game against Golden State, you got about 18 minutes from McGee. You got 24 from Howard, including closing that game out, which is something that doesn't necessarily happen if it's competitive. But I think normally you're going to that's pretty reasonable of what to expect. Probably around 38 to 40 minutes from those guys if LeBron is out, a little bit less if LeBron is in. So neither one is someone you're going to feel confident in, but Howard is only 4,300 on DraftKings where you can roster the 2 centers. So, I don't mind it there. Still not a priority though.
All right. Now, knowing that there's going to be some bigs out there for Joval, where are you going to land with him and what else do you like from Memphis?
You can go back to Joval. Obviously, the minutes are inconsistent, but very productive when he gets them. I think that Dylan Brooks is still underpriced. He should play huge minutes. Played 40 minutes before fouling out last night. He's a high usage guy. He hadn't been shooting well recently, but he gets the opportunities. John Morant's salary went down, so that's someone else you can go back to. His minutes, if you're just looking at game logs, his minutes aren't really that appealing because Memphis has been in a lot of blowouts lately. But in competitive games, you're normally getting at least 32, 33 minutes from him, if not more. Played 35 last night. Usage rate has been up recently after it went down for a bit following his injury. And then with Jaren Jackson being out, that's more usage to go around anyway. So even though it's a tough matchup against the Lakers, I think Morant looks really good. I think Brooks looks like a solid play. You can kind of mix and match on guys like Melton, Anderson, and Josh Jackson. But the priorities for me would be Morant and Brooks, and then using Joe Val in tournaments as well.
All right. In the three, so this game also, or this matchup happened in LA on the 21st. So in that game, Joe Val played 24 minutes. You got 30 combined from the Lakers centers there. Of course, Brandon Clark played 32 minutes. We know he's out, and Jaren Jackson Jr. got hurt in that game. That's when he hurt his knee. So he played 16 minutes before going out of that one. LeBron and Anthony Davis, of course, did play. So just kind of adding additional flavor there. Anybody else as you go down through the rest of Memphis, Melton, Jones, anything at all?
I don't think so. I mean, Melton got the start again yesterday, played 25 minutes, dealt with some foul trouble, picked up 2 fouls in his first stint, picked up a third foul in the second quarter, picked up a fourth foul in the third quarter. So, maybe we haven't really seen what his minutes look like in a game where he's not fouling and where he is starting. So maybe he does play more than 25, 26 minutes if he's not in foul trouble. And he is still cheap. So that's a spot where if the ownership isn't going to be high, maybe you can find some value. Right now, we only have him projected for about 6% ownership on DraftKings. So you could roll the dice there, but it's still he does lose assist opportunities. He does lose usage when he's playing more of his minutes alongside Brooks and Morant.
All right, on to our next one. By the way, it is leap year or leap day today. So, hey, happy birthday to anybody born today. That would be kind of fun. I've always thought that would be kind of neat to have that. Of course, you generally, I don't know that it's the rule or if you get to pick, but generally, I think legally your birthday would be the 28th of February. But it's kind of a fun one, Adam. I don't know anybody personally born on leap day. I went to school with a couple people, but I didn't know them. I mean, we were little kids, so I didn't quite understand it very well. That they only had a birthday every 4 years, technically every 4 years.
Yeah, what guy I lived with for like a year in undergrad was a leap day baby.
I think it's kind of fun. Very, very rare, but enjoy that one. All right, what do we have here? We have me looking up Kevin Love has not played in a back-to-back in a month. It is a back-to-back tonight. He played 26 and a half minutes last night in New Orleans. We'll know what, probably by the 12:30 injury report, but do you think Love plays in this one?
I would assume he doesn't.
Okay. If he doesn't, what do you want to do? I think Tristan Thompson becomes quite interesting. What's his name? Drummond is still. We don't have him ruled out yet. Drummond is still questionable, dealing with his calf injury. That just seems like he doesn't seem happy there. They don't seem happy to have him. Great trade, Cleveland. Great trade. But you've got those guys. So I think Thompson and Nance are the guys we want to discuss. What scenario is it going to take for you to have Thompson and Nance in your lineups? Let's frame it that way.
Well, if Drummond is out, then Thompson is fine regardless. It's not a good matchup against Indiana. His salary on DraftKings did skyrocket to 6,900, which makes him pretty unappealing. On FanDuel, he is 5,400, so a much more appealing price point on FanDuel, as you would expect. But so he's on DraftKings, he'll be tough to get to regardless because that's just a really high price point for someone in a tough spot against Indiana that doesn't shoot regardless. He's not a high usage guy regardless. So pretty site dependent there. Larry Nance only 5,300 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he is 6,100, so he's a little more expensive as well. If Love is out, I would expect Nance gets the start and probably plays 34 minutes. It would still be, I think, a secondary option just because he's not as productive when he's not playing center, and it's not a good matchup against Indiana. So with his price tag being where it is on DraftKings, I still think it would just be like a secondary play if Love is out and not a play if Love is in.
All right. Hit that like button if you get us up to 100 likes in the next few minutes. I will skip the next ad read. There's your trade off.
Please get 100 likes.
Please get 100 likes from Adam. The one time Adam really tries to sell something here. So there we are. There we are. All right. Yeesh, that's just a whole lot of. Ugh. Garland, I think, is in the mix for cheaper guard, but that's really about it. I mean, Colin Sexton is fine. He's just a little spendy, not the best of matchups. There's, he'll probably Brogdon will be dealing with him. Would be my guess.
Yeah, you would think. And the Cleveland guards are all guys that I find appealing in good matchups in tournaments because they seem like they're always low owned and they get a lot of opportunities and a lot of minutes. But this is just a really, really tough matchup against a slow team that's good defensively. Only a 104 total for Cleveland. The one guy I would point out is that Kevin Porter should see big minutes regardless. But if Love is out, it could open the door for even a couple more minutes for Porter. He is less expensive than Sexton, more expensive than Garland. But, if you're going to get around 32 minutes from him with probably a 24 to, 25% usage rate, that's not the worst play if he's going to be low on.
All right. There is someone in chat. It said, "Oh, there's only 80 people watching. How can we get 100 likes?" You probably just need to refresh your browser. We've got over 400 watching, and you guys are closing in on those 100 likes. Wow, fun to see what people can do when motivated. We're at 80 right now, so we'll see. The next read's coming up shortly. Adam, going over to the Indiana. Pardon me. Anything else from Cleveland, or would you like to discuss Indiana?
No, we can go to the Indiana side.
All right. So we have Edmund Sumner. Edmund. Oh, tricky name. Edmund Sumner is questionable, still dealing with a sore hip. And that is really it, which means Victor Oladipo should be playing. I wanted to point it out because where is Mr. Oladipo's price point on the various sites? We have him. Nice if all of my Indiana people showed up. What other folks?
4,800 on FanDuel. So he hasn't changed there. 5,800 on DraftKings.
Why did it only show me Jakar Sampson? Oh, there we go. There's everybody. Thank you. Yeah, so 58, 48, and 16. So, yeah, maybe on FanDuel. What do you think you're going to see with his minutes? Is he starting to get more efficient after his nearly year layoff? Would you rather have someone like a Cam Reddish, a Gary Trent Jr., someone of that ilk instead of Oladipo tonight?
On DraftKings, yeah, probably because they're a lot cheaper. On FanDuel, I would take the 4,800 Oladipo. He's going to be rusty. He's going to struggle for a bit. That's completely normal with the injury he's coming back from and how long he was gone. But he's pretty clearly priced for that on FanDuel. He's averaged so far this season. Last year he was a 1.15 DraftKings point per minute guy. This year he's well below 1 fantasy point per minute. But the opportunities are still there. 25.9% usage rate, 0.74 DraftKings points per minute. Played 26 minutes last game. I would expect in the 28-minute range tonight, and in a good matchup against Cleveland. So at only 4,800, I think he's fine. At 5,800 on DraftKings, I think I can do better.
All right, we've got. I'm okay with Sabonis. Okay with kind of John Collins is in similar price range. Hassan Whiteside similarly priced. We're going to talk about Jason Tatum similarly priced. I kind of like those guys a little more than Sabonis, but this is it's going to be a decent matchup for him. Indiana favored by 8 on the road. We know that a lot of the work that's going to get done will most likely be by him. I'm guessing he'll play 33, 34 minutes.
Who's that?
Sabonis.
I would think more, like 36.
Okay. Do you like Sabonis? Do you like TJ Warren? Does Miles Turner make your socks roll up and down? What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Sabonis is fine. He's just a little bit more expensive than I would like. One thing that stands out looking at the last game that Indiana played, this was the first game that we had Victor Oladipo in the starting lineup with Jeremy Lamb out. And they had said that Aaron Holiday was going to pick up a lot of minutes with Lamb out. Holiday only played 14 minutes. What you saw was Malcolm Brogdon get a little over 38 minutes. TJ Warren got 38 minutes. Miles Turner played 32 minutes. Sabonis did lose a little bit of playing time to foul trouble. So that could have, it looks like it slightly impacted Turner, but not too much. I think that Sampson just got a little bit more run as a result. But what it looks like happen, at least in that game. And we don't know if it'll be the case every game or not, but you got more run for Brogdon and for Warren specifically without Lamb in there. So I think that if you can go from like the normal 32 minutes for Brogdon to even 34 or 35 minutes in this spot, it makes him look like a really good option at only $7,000 on DraftKings. And then the same goes for Warren. If instead of 32 or 33 minutes, you can give him 36, 37 against Cleveland at only 5,900. That's not really a bad price either, especially since he's a forward.
All right. Reminder tonight, we do have Live Before Lock that will be featuring Fast Steady Fear. That will be at 6:30. Lock is at 7:30. So we will go for a full hour, and then we will spend another half hour talking about Super Draft. Just a reminder, Super Draft, sponsor of this show. That was information. That was not an actual ad read. The ad read will come later because we said we'd skip this one. You know what I don't want to skip? Jason Tatum. Adam, he has been amazing. Let me throw some numbers here at you. Since missing 3 games with the groin injury, he came back on January 30th. He has played a dozen games in that time frame. This does include one hefty overtime game, and then his first 2 games back, he played 20, 24, and 28 minutes. During this 12-game stretch, he is averaging 35.5 minutes per game, 1.38 fantasy points per minute, taking just shy of 20 field goal attempts in this game. The amazing part, he's making 4.1 3-pointers per game during this stretch. He is averaging 7 boards, 3 assists, 2.2 combined blocks and steals. He had 3 double-doubles. The worst game he had in this stretch was actually against tonight's opponent in Houston. He was 5 of 15 from the field, 5 of 9 from the line, did not actually hit a 3-pointer. That's the only game in this stretch that he has not hit a 3-pointer. We are paying, I think it's a fair price. I don't want to say we were paying top dollar. We were paying top dollar for him at 94 on DK, 92 on Fanduel, 43 on Yahoo, 25% multiplier there on Superdraft. But currently his projected ownership is 10 on DK, 20 on Fanduel, and 10 on Yahoo. I like the fact that at the moment, not a lot of people are going there. Now things will shift when we find out if LeBron's in or out, etc. But I really want Jason Tatum to be a mainstay of my lineups tonight. Too bold of a stance, a realistic stance. How do you feel about Jason Tatum?
I think it's fine. Like, he should play big minutes here. It's a good matchup. Houston obviously plays small. So, all that looks good. He has the usage has been coming up a bit too, which I think was to be expected. If you looked at games that Kemba Walker had missed this year, his usage rate really wasn't as high as you would expect. But I expect him to kind of settle into like the 31, 32% range as opposed to the 29% he'd been at. So I do think Tatum looks good. I think the salary is pretty much where it should be. And it comes down to, like, I would rather pay 10-2 for Davis if LeBron is out than 9,400 for Tatum. But I still think that Tatum is fine at that price point. But I think I'm a little bit more interested even in like a $6,900 Jaylen Brown or a $7,400 Hayward. It seems like they're a little bit discounted compared to Tatum's price tag, John.
All right, Jaylen Brown, 1.6 multiplier there on Superdraft. That's going to put him up in the top 7 or so players from a raw points projection. I was just screwing around with some earlier today. I have not looked at where Osmo has his, but that's what I came up with there. Let's see. Are there any Marcus Smart? A lot of guys for Marcus Smart to guard in this game. He's kind of a forgotten man, but this feels like the kind of game where there could be some steals, some disruption in the passing lane. I kind of like Marcus Smart here as a bit of an under-the-radar play. Let me pull up our ownership. But how do you feel about Smart and or anybody else here for the C's?
I think Smart should play big minutes. I'm just not real confident in a $6,500 salary for him. You definitely need him to run into some defensive stats, but if he plays another 37 or 38 minutes, I don't think that would be surprising at all. Given you have Westbrook, you have Harden, and it's going to be really easy for Boston to run small lineups out there. Ennis Cantor was someone that I've been kind of taking shots on when he's really cheap. I don't think I'll be doing that much today because it would be really surprising if the Celtics run an actual backup center. Like, there's no reason to do that. So I would expect that you get more of like Grant Williams than Ennis Cantor as the backup center. Not that I'm saying to play Williams, just that I'm not going to go to Cantor today.
Yeah, and in the now, I don't know all the specifics, but he only played 8 minutes in the game in Houston. So that kind of is eye-catching, just to say, that's not a lot of minutes. Now he has played single-digit minutes in games where we thought I would have thought he'd play a little bit more, like 12 minutes or so, in Minnesota and in Los Angeles. But he did play, 21 minutes against in his double revenge games in Utah, and then 17 minutes in Portland. But yeah, I think it's a good call to. Would you just? I know you do a lot of this through projections, but for someone who's hand building, would you just outright say, "Yeah, I'm not going to play Enes Kanter tonight"?
Yes.
Okay. Would you play Tatum and Brown in the same lineup in Fanduel tournaments?
I don't see any reason not to. Like, it's not. I'm not starting my lineup by saying, "Oh, I want Tatum and Brown," but I don't think it's a problem. Like, they both should play huge minutes. They both get plenty of opportunities.
How do you think Daniel Tice shapes up in this game?
I would expect like upper 20s in minutes. He should be able to stay on the floor. Like, they don't. The thing is, they don't have to leave him in. It's not like they can't just go smaller, but he should be able to stay out there. I would expect. I'm expecting pretty close to his normal run. I just think that Cantor's minutes probably get shaved.
Oh, interesting. Steph Curry may be back tomorrow. Maybe.
For what it's worth, 29 minutes against Houston on February 11th for Tice.
Okay. He's been a nice find for them. It's really been filling the needs that they have now that they don't have Horford. Not that Horford may or may not have been this bad if he was still with the Celtics, but Tice has done reasonably well in my opinion, considering the salary cap hit and all that stuff. So.
Also, as far as Cantor goes, Robert Williams is back for Boston, so that's one other guy that they don't really need in this matchup, but that at least could steal minutes from Cantor.
Houston, we have James Harden. We've got Russell Westbrook, both priced probably appropriately. Tougher matchup for them, but this is the ABC 8:30 Eastern game, so it is the featured game of the night for what that is worth. Russell Westbrook also has 14 technicals. When you get 16, you have to sit a game. He got his 16th around this time last year and had to sit a game. I just wanted to throw that out there. He usually doesn't get more than one a game, but just keep that in mind here and there. Perhaps he'll get one so he can rest on a back-to-back and not have it really worry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel bad for whatever ref crew gets him on the first half of his next back-to-back.
Yeah, so little fourth quarter antics in that game since he knows he's not going to play the next game, and just sit that one out. But what do you like here from Houston? Where do you rank the top two guys amongst the top crew tonight, considering a lot of the the Atlanta guys are on a back-to-back, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is just that the guard position is so crowded, and if LeBron is out, then I think you give priority to Anthony Davis at the price point too. But I think Harden and Westbrook obviously both look really good here. 10-9 for Harden on DraftKings, 10-1 for Westbrook on FanDuel. You have Westbrook at 10-6, so actually a little more expensive than DraftKings. You have Harden at 11 too. But the way the Rockets are playing right now with their new extreme small ball. Yeah, exactly. It's really, really beneficial for Westbrook because as much as a lot of people kind of make fun of him for not actually being that good, he is good at getting to the rim. He's good at getting out and running in transition. He's good at that stuff. He's not a good shooter, but you're not seeing many mid-range jump shots from him at all. And now you have a ton of room for him to get to the rim and to operate in the paint. So it's really, really, really benefited Westbrook. I don't think it's a fluke that we're seeing such monster games from him. His driving numbers have gone up as a result. So I do really like Westbrook at 10-1. Harden at 10-9 obviously is fine as well. But I think that even like Harden's ceiling obviously is still enormous, but I do think that because of the increased opportunities for Westbrook to get to the basket, you're going to see that gap between Harden and Westbrook be a lot closer than it was earlier in the season. I think that the trend recently, does continue because of how much this benefits Westbrook.
How many 3-pointers do you think Westbrook has made in his last 13 games?
12.
8.
What is he taking?
I don't have that up. I just have 3-pointers made, but not very much. What is he? He's like a career 27% shooter, I think. I'm pulling that number out of thin air, but so Westbrook. Let's see if I get that quick enough here. Old ESPN. I still go to the ESPN pages. Die hard here. He is averaging 4 per game. He's a career 30.4% shooter, so I besmirched him a little bit. He is shooting 25% this year. That is below replacement level, Adam?
Yeah, a little bit. So he's averaged for the season, he's averaged 20.3 drives per game. In the 6 games since I think I put the dates in right, but in the 6 games since the Rockets got Covington, he's averaging a little over 22 drives per game. So you are seeing, more drives from him, and that should lead to increased efficiency.
All right, now we're going to have some real fun with numbers. I did see Robin Lopez was 2 for 2 from behind the arc last night. Wow. How many seasons do you think Robin Lopez was in the league before he took his first 3-pointer?
7? I have no idea.
Year 10, it looks like. If I'm... And I'm looking at... He may not have had enough for it to round up, but... Wow! This year he is taking 1.6 per game in a bench role, and he is making 33% of them. Interesting. I wonder if his brother helped him out on that one. Back to the current task at hand, branching out there from Houston. Do you want to do anything with an elevating price on Robert Covington? Is there anybody else that interests you in this matchup?
I think that Covington is somewhat appealing just because he's playing so many minutes and his rebounding opportunities have gone up since coming to the Rockets. Him and Westbrook are at the top in terms of rebound chances per game. His salary is getting a little expensive too. Like I would rather go to TJ Warren at 5,900 against Cleveland than Covington at 5,900 against Boston. But he'd be the guy that I trust more than any of the other wings from Houston.
All right. Apologies for the dog barking. I have no idea why my wife's not coming in the house because she knows I'm on air. That's probably why she's not coming in the house. What, if anything, do you want to say about this game before we hit our last 2 of the night?
That's about it.
All right. On to our second to last game, the penultimate game. Orlando at the Spurs. We have LaMarcus Aldridge out with his sore shoulder. We have Jakob Pirtle breaking hearts. Let's start there. Do you think it's Pirtle against the larger Orlando front court? Do you think it's Lonnie Walker? Or do you think, who the hell knows, it's Greg Popovich?
That's the actual answer is who the hell knows. But my guess is that it's going to be Pirtle. You had, in that last game against Dallas, you had, Porzingis at the 5, so it was pretty easy. You didn't need Pirtle out there, and I think that going with Walker gave them a little bit more size against Luka as well. So I would expect it to be Pirtle here. It doesn't have to be, but I'm going to assume that it is until I hear otherwise.
Right. Where we don't have to worry about these pesky salaries, that would be over there at Super Draft. So you want to say hello to lineup freedom, say goodbye to those pesky salary restrictions. Super Draft, you get 3 guards, 3 forwards, and a center. Again, no salary cap. How does that work? Why wouldn't we always just play Harden and Westbrook and Trey Young? Well, we can, and you can put in Anthony Davis, LeBron, and Jason Tatum there as well. However, most of those guys are going to have a 1 to a 1.05 multiplier. You're going to want to play guys like say Jaylen Brown with the 1.6 multiplier today. That looks pretty good. What does that mean? That means whatever his fantasy points are, you add another 60% to it. That's a pretty hefty total there. What is their scoring? It's 3 points for blocks and steals. It's a bonus half point for 3-pointers, and you get the double-double and triple-double bonuses. They have taken all the fun that you like at the various scoring systems and put them all into one, and then added that modifier on that. It is a lot of fun. If you have not yet signed up, you can use the promo code OSMO when making your first deposit. If you put in $100, they will give you $20 immediately in Super Cash, which is their site currency, which can be used to enter into any contest. That is superdraft.io. They also have an app available to them, and I understand the app is very, very good. So I'm going to be downloading that today because, Adam, I only enter contests from my computer because I'm the old guy shouting at the clouds. But there we are. DeMar DeRozan, I don't know what to do with him. This is a great spot for him from a, hey, you need to take all the shots and you're going to get all the usage that you want, DeMar, but it's not the best matchups. It is at home. It's a reasonable price point. I kind of have him as a fringe play where it's coming out. I think I could be wrong on that. So what is your tournament perspective here for DeMar DeRozan?
I think a lot normally in situations like this, a lot comes down to ownership. I think he is a good play. We also have him projected as the fifth highest owned guy on DraftKings at 7,600. The reason that I think it's something you have to at least kind of consider, whereas like the other day I thought he was a clear priority on the slate, is that today you do have a lot of other guys in good matchups that are missing players as well. CJ McCollum, for example, the Boston guys against Houston without Kemba, the Indiana guys against Cleveland without Jeremy Lamb. So I think that the fact that he's playing a slow Orlando team that is good defensively is a little bit more important. That being said, though, without LaMarcus Aldridge this year, you're looking at a 34-35% usage rate for DeRozan. He should play mid 30s in minutes, assuming that this game's competitive. So I do still think that he's a really, really good play just because of all the opportunities he's going to get.
All right. How are you feeling about the guards? You have your usual rules, I'm sure, set with the Derek White, DeJounte Murray, Patty Mills, Bryn Forbes pairings. Patty Mills is really, really cheap. And if you're looking for some late slate value, I'm very intrigued by him. DeJounte Murray, not sure what to do. Couple bad games, and this is game log watching. Couple bad games coming off a bunch of really good games. That's probably what we should expect because Pop's not afraid to change the rotation or the minutes balance based upon which guy's hot, various matchups, etc., etc. So it's hard to trust those guys. Derek White also feels pretty cheap, but obviously DeJounte is the most talented of those guys. And then you have secret option E, Lonnie Walker, who drew the spot start in the last game. What do you want to do with this passel of passable guards?
I think Derek White is interesting. He played 28 minutes last game. Obviously, you have to keep in mind that the Spurs played that game small. Like in the second half, Jakob Pirtle didn't even come off the bench, so it made it easier for all the guards potentially to get more minutes. But um, DeJounte Murray has said that he wants to play more minutes alongside Derek White. And for a lot of this season, you've seen essentially 48 minutes split between White and Murray. At times, you'd see a few minutes where they played alongside each other. It seems like maybe they go to a little bit more of that. They still didn't do it a lot against Dallas. They did close the first half with White and Murray alongside each other. But other than that, they split minutes. But at only 4,100, I think that it might be worth the risk on to get to some White just because he is a pretty productive player when he gets minutes. And if you can get, even 25, 26 minutes from him at 4,100, it's not a bad price point.
Right. Trey Lyles, Rudy Gay, just leaving no stone unturned here. Rudy Gay, never exciting, at least not this season, but he has had, 72 hours since his last game. He played 21 minutes in that one, played 18 in the one before, but he's no longer a fantasy point per minute guy by any stretch of that definition.
Yeah, I think it's pretty tough to get to Gay or Lyles here. Lyles becomes more appealing if Pirtle, does come off the bench again. But if we're going under the assumption that Pirtle goes back to the starting lineup, it takes some value away from Lyles.
All right. Nikolai Vucevic, reasonably priced. He's having a very, very nice season. He's a walking double. He contributes a little bit with blocks. He's knocking down some long distance threes. Where do you have him in the pantheon of centers tonight? Because we've got him, you've got Whiteside. We'll get to DeAndre Ayton. It's a nice little mix there, but it really drops off after those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a good spot for him against San Antonio. It's not a great defensive team. He is playing big minutes. It's still tough to prioritize him over a cheaper DeAndre Ayton or a little bit more expensive Hassan Whiteside, and that's not even considering Bam or Sabonis or Davis. But I do think that it's still a really high upside spot. And normally when you get something like that, you saw it last night where Vooch was in a great spot against Minnesota, but just because of the way pricing shook out, he was only 3 to 5% owned depending on tournament because it just wasn't an optimal spot. But that's the kind of spot that you want to be looking to pivot to in tournaments because you're not lowering your ceiling whatsoever. You're just making your lineup project a little bit lower from a median standpoint, which isn't really that important. So, assuming it's the same kind of thing here, because I think that you're going to get more ownership on Ayton, you're going to get more ownership on Whiteside. Right now, we have Vooch at 13% on DraftKings, Whiteside at 25%, Ayton at 27%. So I think that you can use Vooch as a tournament pivot if those ownerships hold.
Yeah, he's basically between 10 and 15 across the three sides. So sort of interesting there. I also think that he is someone that you can consider on Super Draft. He has a 1.25 multiplier there. It'll be a nice pivot away from Ayton or the guys that Adam had mentioned that are center eligible on that site. Aaron Gordon realizing his vast potential. Aaron Gordon has topped 50 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5. Usually this is the time when Aaron Gordon reaches into our chest, pulls out our heart, and shows it to us while it's still beating at him. Do you want to pay this lofty price point, this deservedly lofty price point for Aaron Gordon?
The big thing about Gordon that stands out is the minutes he's been playing.
40, 40,
yeah.
40, the last 3, top 40 each of them, 40, between 40 and 41.
Yeah, 41, 41, 41, 35 in a blowout, and 43 against Detroit 5 games ago. So just playing absolutely monster minutes. And, Alex and I talked about it yesterday. On one hand, you can't just start projecting Aaron Gordon for 40 minutes, I don't think. But on the other hand, I'm good going to like 36, 37, as opposed to the normal 34 that he'd been playing for a lot of the year, just because of, the fact that he's been doing it pretty much every game. Gary Clark hasn't been in the rotation, and he wasn't replaced by anybody. You're just giving more minutes to Aaron Gordon. So that's really appealing. The price tag obviously has jumped up pretty quickly. One thing that is appealing here, though, is, obviously San Antonio is not the quality defensive team that they were in the past, but they've struggled specifically defending in transition this year. They've allowed the most points, or they're tied with the Pelicans for the most points per possession in transition this year. So the opportunity for Aaron Gordon to get out and run and have a bit of success there is pretty appealing as well. Ultimately, the salary is at a point where it's going to be really, really tough to prioritize him just because he's not he contributes in every category, but he's still not a really high usage guy, and the price tag has come up. But I do think it's a favorable matchup, and I do think that the playing time has changed from where it was previously.
All right, I'm going to paraphrase this, but it's from Andre in our premium Slack chat. He says Gordon hits 40 fantasy points or 50 in his last 6 games. Dwayne Wade still gives him a 9. That's a good one, Andre. That's really a good one. So hat tip there. Anything else you want to do? An increasing price tag on Evan Fournier. Markelle Fultz is looking like a young player that is playing a lot of minutes and kind of tired. You've got Terrence Ross, who is always just doing Terrence Ross type things. James Ennis has been popping a little bit on our projections just because he's so low priced. Anything else here with our tertiary Magic plays?
No, not really. I think Vooch and Gordon are the two that look the most appealing. You can take some shots on like a Markelle Fultz or Fournier, but I think that Vooch and Gordon are the two most appealing.
Right. If you guys are looking for some free stuff, we do have a great article on the homepage by Chris Baggs breaking down this week's XFL slate. Reminder, the XFL package is an add-on, but that article is free. We do have player projections as well as ownership projections, and a very vibrant Slack chat where Chris is in there giving advice. He and Sal did a show yesterday, Sal Vetri. You can get that on the YouTube channel, and then you can also get, of course, advice from Alex. You know him better as Osmo. He pops in there as players change and are announced out during the inactives time. We have some other free offerings today. We have the NHL rankings. We have the NBA rankings. And then we have the PGA DFS weekend model. Now, you still get late slate round 3 golf, and then you have full day golf, a single day golf tomorrow as well. So that's something you'll want to check out. We've got NASCAR coming in. I forget which race they're on. They're probably, what are they, in Phoenix, I think, this week? Because they were in Vegas last week, so that's usually the race after Vegas. We definitely have projections and ownership projections for that as well. There's a nice free article on the homepage there by Phil, and you'll want to read that. He's also in Slack dispensing his advice, usually right after qualifying or right before lock. So it's a lot of help there. You can also get some of the what is it? Xfinity. I think it's Xfinity. Yeah, Xfinity. The whatever, I forget what they even call it. The junior circuit for NASCAR that goes off this afternoon as well. We do have some fun content for that. All right, Adam, last game of the night. This one is a good one. We've got some questions that need answering. So here are my highlights. This is 3-4 for Phoenix, and it's also 4-6. So that's a lot of games there. That's the only thing that kept me from putting DeAndre Ayton as my best player today. I went with Jason Tatum, just also accounting for ownership, pricing, and position, etc. But Ayton is definitely on my short list. He has been outstanding. Kelly Oubre is pretty much done. I don't know that it's official, but he's done for the year. That leaves 35 minutes, 15 field goal attempts, and 6 rebounds that need to be accounted for. We know that the Suns are likely lottery bound. Once again, they are just 4 games out of the 8th spot in the West, and Memphis is disintegrating before our eyes. But my point there being, they are not yet completely tanking. Golden State is so far behind everybody, it's not really going to help them. They lost last night, Phoenix did, at home to Detroit. But over the last 4 games, they've been playing their starters or closing out with their usual guys. So I think they're still trying hard. And this is the same team that somehow knocked off Utah by what was it, almost 20 points in Utah last week. So what do you want to do with Phoenix? Does that workload 3-4 and 4-6 bother you a little bit, or is the matchup just too good to overcome against Golden State?
The way I approach the 4-6 thing is like, I would rather it not be a 4-6, obviously, but I'm not doing a whole lot to like lower projections on these guys. One thing that I did notice, I was watching the Phoenix game last night. One of the Phoenix broadcasters said that Monty Williams had said that he would like to start keeping Booker around 32 minutes. He then played Booker 40 minutes. I'm not reading into that at all. It was just something that when they said it, obviously caught my attention, but very clearly not. It's one of those things, I guess, where the coach said he would like to do something and then forgot that he's completely in control of whether or not that happens. But
that happens a lot, Adam, and
yeah.
you're always there to point it out. You and Lofty.
So I'm still treating Devin Booker exactly the same, giving him 36, 37 minutes here. I guess that's just something to keep an eye on. Like if he were to randomly play 32 minutes, we should probably be pretty quickly in the future under projecting his minutes. But for now, I'm assuming that was either a misunderstanding on the broadcaster's part or the coach just lying. So Booker, I think, still is underpriced, gets a little bit of a usage bump without Oubre, and I would assume plays big minutes in a good matchup against Golden State. Same goes for Ayton. Played another 35 and a half minutes last night. He's now played 5 games since coming back from injury. The only game where he played fewer than 35 minutes was a game where he played 21 in huge foul trouble against, I think it was Utah. So no real reason to think that you're getting fewer than 35 minutes from Ayton. He's also still underpriced. He's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute player who also sees a little bit of a bump in usage without Oubre. So a really good spot for him too. Obviously there is a little bit more risk, a little more downside risk because of the schedule for Phoenix, but there's just not a whole lot that I think you can do to lower projections. And the one reason I treat it like that is that Vegas obviously knows what the schedule's been like, and a large part of your projections are going to be based on Vegas totals. So it is already factored in to some extent. I don't feel the need to just be like manually cutting guys even more.
Okay, and that's a good point. And mine might be just because the matchup is still so good. They're missing guys. Maybe I don't goose them quite as much as I would if this was an island game, or pardon me, if this was a game where they were an island game where they're coming off 2 days of rest. This is just one where it's like, we'll see where things shake out. But I like this game a lot. Dario Saric yesterday he was in the good value. Today he's in the risky value column of section of the DFS Building Blocks article. Why did I change him? Was it because of his somewhat crappy performance last night? No. No, it wasn't at all. Here's why I have him in the risky value. So let's see here. His popularity on ownership on FanDuel and Yahoo is 41%. Wow, that's a lot. He is $3,810 respectively. Okay, that's fair for someone who's starting. I want to know where the upside is. There should be upside, right, Adam? He is averaging 0.8 to 0.85 fantasy points per minute this season. However, in his 23 games he has played since Christmas, he missed nine games with the sprained ankle. But in those 23 games, he started 15 of them, Adam. How many times in those 23 games do you think he topped 25 fantasy points?
You said in 23 games?
23 games. Starting 15 of them.
9?
3. No bueno. Now, setting all that aside, we have a perfectly capable guy who can create, or he's a decent shooter, adequate rebounder. He's starting. He's getting a bunch of minutes against a crappy opponent. But the masses are on him. What do you want to do with him at the low price, particularly the basically minimum price on Yahoo and FanDuel? Is that have all the risk baked in for you?
Right. Like, I think at that price point, it's still a good value. The minutes are there. Yesterday still played 27 minutes. I would expect that you're typically going to get 27 to 28. He's just not a really productive player, especially when you're getting more minutes, alongside Booker and Ayton. He's played 227 minutes alongside them this year. He has a 16.5% usage rate. If you take Kelly Oubre off the floor and leave those two on, you get 112 minutes with an 18% usage rate. So you're still talking about him being really the fourth option offensively behind Booker, Ayton, Rubio. So where he's priced up, where he's up to 4,900 on DraftKings, I'm not really that interested because I just don't think he puts up a score that you need to have all that often. But where he's cheap on FanDuel and Yahoo, it's not one of those value type plays where I'm starting my lineup off by putting Dario Saric in. But when I build my lineup, he's going to be a useful piece a lot just because he is too cheap if he's going to play, upper 20s minutes.
All right. And then Ricky Rubio, hello, seems to be, I don't know what the right phrasing is. I'm going to sound like an announcer here, asserting himself more, Adam. But the game logs, very, very nice after we had the baby game, and then we had about 20 games of a whole lot of, as Devin Booker was truly asserting himself. What are we doing with Rubio again? Feels like he's back and in an effective man.
I think that it's a tournament play. Like, he's not someone that I completely trust because he is still the third option offensively. Like, he's not going to take usage from Booker or from Ayton, but he should be a little bit of a beneficiary from Oubre not being out there. Oubre is a 22 to 23% usage guy, being replaced by Dario Saric, who, as we just said, is like 16 to 18%. So there are more shots for Rubio, and he can be a little bit more involved offensively. The minutes, typically you're getting 32 to 34 minutes. His price tag's risen pretty quickly. He's up to 7,300 on DraftKings. That's what makes it tough. Like, Devin Booker is 8,100, Ricky Rubio is 7,300. If you're talking about from a projection standpoint, Booker's just going to look a lot better than Rubio.
All right. Anything else from the Suns you want to mention? Cam Johnson, anything like
that? No.
All right. Golden State should have Andrew Wiggins back. He was a late scratch in his last one. That was a debacle and a half because it was a 4-game slate, and there was really nobody within $2,000 of him you could late swap to, so you were leaving a bunch of salary on the table, and it consolidated a bunch of ownership in what was just a so happy it's Thursday, use that acronym, kind of night. But I do like Damian Lee here, even with Wiggins back. Right now, I'm assuming this changes, but we're basically seeing 1% ownership for Damian Lee on DraftKings and FanDuel, 8% on Yahoo. I like him because I really want to go to this game. I think he's a reasonable play. He's, not super duper dynamic, but in his 10 games this month, he has averaged 30 minutes per game and 0.9 fantasy points per minute. That's relatively solid. We know that Golden State likes him. They gave him a 3-year contract after they converted him from a two-way player. He will be the third guard or fourth guard when Clay and Curry are both healthy, etc. next year. But he's definitely proven himself to be a capable rotation guy and kind of a second unit scorer, considering what he's done in his time in a more prominent role at this point. Do you like Damian Lee? Do you like Marquise Chris? Do you want Andrew Wiggins? Is Draymond taking the night off tonight? Maybe to get rested up for the potential return of Curry tomorrow against the Wizards. What do you want to do with the Dubs as we wrap up the show?
Yeah, so we also have Kai Bowman out for tonight's game. Wiggins probable. Jordan Poole questionable. He did come back after his injury the other night, so I'm assuming he'll be able to go. But
I think he'll
Bowman being
play
out does
tonight.
open.
I
What do you
think
say?
Poole. I think Poole will play tonight.
Yeah, so do I. Bowman being out does open up some more minutes. Overall, this rotation is still a mess. I mean, you had Michael Mulder play 22 minutes last game on a 10-day contract. You have just still a lot of bodies here, but I do agree that Damian Lee should be a good option. He's affordably priced. He should get plenty of minutes, especially Bowman being out helps to solidify those backcourt minutes. So he looks like a pretty decent option. Marquise Chris, I think, is a high upside tournament option. It's a good matchup against this Phoenix front court. He's only 5,400 on DraftKings. The minutes are somewhat concerning. He played 23 minutes last game, dealt with a little bit of foul trouble, but also it's just that you have a pretty crowded front court between him, Kevon Looney, Dragan Bender, and Draymond being back too. So I don't think the minutes are safe, but I think that there's still a lot of games where you're getting like 26 to 28 minutes from Chris, and he's over a fantasy point per minute guy in a good matchup. So that's a pretty appealing option in tournaments, I think. Draymond and Wiggins both, just secondary options for me because Wiggins should lead the team in usage. Green should get a lot of assist opportunities. Who knows? I mean, Wiggins, we've seen all year, is pretty inefficient when you don't have a good scorer on the floor with him. Draymond, I don't think really could care less about playing basketball right now. So there's obviously, risk there, but it's a team where most of these guys are priced well enough that there's probably a couple good plays from the game. It's just a really frustrating team in trying to figure out which ones it's going to be because most of them are going to project for within a couple minutes of each other. Most of them are going to project for usage rates that are within a couple points of each other. And it really just comes down to, who runs into a couple defensive stats or who shoots better than normal. My guesses would be Damian Lee and Marquise Chris as the top two guys, but you could, make a case for basically anyone from like Eric Pat from even Toscano Anderson really up through Andrew Wiggins.
All right. Let's see. Hit that like button before we get on out of here. Another reminder, if you want to win an Osmo monthly pass, all you got to do is subscribe to our podcast channel, rate and review, and put your Osmo username or your Twitter handle in your review. 5-star review, of course, or rating. Come on. Is there any other kind? But each day we will be doing a drawing of everybody who registered and met that criteria for the day. You can register on a variety of sites. I'm going to drop a little link in here that shows you all the different ways that you can get into an Osmo podcast. We have the Apple Podcast, Google Play. We have Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Breaker, the usual RSS feed, SoundCloud, and Castbox. That's a lot of different ways to listen to Adam. It is. Let's see. Super Draft, reminder, we do have the show tonight at 6:30. It will be going from 6:30 to the 7:30 lock tonight, and then another 30 minutes there for Super Draft. That's over at superdraft.io. If you guys sign up, use the promo code OSMO when you make your first deposit, and you will get $20 in super cash if you deposit at least $100. It's a pretty good deal. That is available for immediate use into any contests. A couple guys that are popping on our projections with the modifier at the moment. Adam, I'm going to get over to that page. Anthony Davis coming in at number 1 with a 1.05 multiplier, so it's a 5% kicker. Jaylen Brown coming in at number 2 with the 60% kicker there. So there's a little bit of nuance over here at Super Draft. The chalk can run heavy, but if you find the right guys, like say a Larry Nance Jr., in the event Kevin Love were to be out and you get a 1.65 multiplier on him, good things can happen. Jakob Pirtle, 1.8 multiplier. We saw bad things happen. It's a new night. It's a different matchup. We'll see what transpires after this. Any final thoughts, Adam, before we get on out?
I'll have the deep dive article out in the afternoon behind the paywall, and that obviously will be a little bit more in depth on some players, and hopefully we get a little bit of news by then. So that'll be out probably in the next few hours.
Excellent. Of course, you can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS. And in the meantime, if you want an article to read, here's the free one, DFS Building Blocks. That is on the Osmo homepage, along with our NBA cheat sheets, which are free as well. You can follow Osmo at Osmo_COM. Hit that thumbs up button, folks. With that, gamers,